Ava Marchetti had 15 minutes to get to the most important job interview of her life when an Italian mafia boss spilled coffee all over her white silk shirt, missed his critical business meeting to help her, and gave her his $4,000 suit to wear instead. Sometimes disasters are just the universe's way of introducing you to your future. The morning had started exactly according to plan, which in hindsight should have been the first warning sign, because Ava's life didn't do according to plan. She'd woken at 5:30, showered, done her makeup twice because the first attempt made her look like she was auditioning for a zombie movie, and put on the outfit she'd been planning for 2 weeks. White silk blouse from Saks. $200 she absolutely could not afford but had bought anyway because this interview mattered. Black pencil skirt. Heels that made her 3 inches taller and gave her the illusion of having her life together. Hair in a professional bun that had taken 6 YouTube tutorials to master. She was interviewing for junior associate at Morrison & Beck, the corporate law firm, where she'd been working as a paralegal for 3 years. This was the promotion. The one that came with an actual salary instead of ramen budget income and student loan panic attacks. The one that meant she'd finally made it. Interview was at 10 a.m. sharp in the building next to the Baccarat Hotel in Midtown. She'd left her apartment in Brooklyn at 8:30 to account for subway delays, signal problems, and the general chaos that was New York City public transportation on a Monday morning. She'd made it to Midtown by 9:40. Early. Perfect. She was cutting through the Baccarat Hotel lobby because it was faster than going around, and also because the lobby was gorgeous, and walking through it made her feel successful, even when she was catastrophically broke. She was rehearsing answers to potential interview questions in her head, phone in hand, reviewing notes she'd made at 3 a.m. when sleep had been optional and anxiety had been winning. She didn't see him coming. Alessandro Rossi was having the kind of morning that made him seriously reconsider every life choice that had led him to this exact moment. He was late for the most important meeting he'd had in 6 months. His consigliere Rocco was calling him every 30 seconds with increasingly creative Italian profanity, and the Moretti family was going to take his lateness as a sign of disrespect, which could torpedo the entire negotiation. The peace talks had taken half a year to arrange. Territory disputes, old grudges, the kind of mafia politics that made normal politics look straightforward. Both families wanted to avoid a war. Wars were bad for business. But wars happened when people felt disrespected. And Alessandro was currently 15 minutes late. He'd been on the phone with Rocco trying to explain why he was late, which involved a conversation with his mother that had gone longer than expected because Maria Rossi didn't do short conversations. She did interrogations disguised as maternal concern. "Ma, I have a meeting," he'd said. "A meeting is more important than your mother?" She'd replied, which was a trap, and he'd known it, but had walked into it anyway. "No, but you work too much, Alessandro. When are you going to find a nice girl? Settle down? I want grandchildren before I die. You're 62 and perfectly healthy. I could die any moment. Any moment, Alessandro. And you'd regret not giving me grandchildren." He'd finally extracted himself from the conversation and was now speed-walking through the Baccarat lobby where the meeting was being held in a private conference room, phone pressed to his ear, Rocco on the other end delivering a detailed assessment of how badly this was going. Si. I'm 5 minutes away," Alessandro said in Italian, which wasn't true. He was more like 2 minutes away, but Rocco was already stressed enough. "The Morettis are not happy," Rocco said. "They think you're playing games." "I'm not playing games. I was talking to my mother." "You're 40 years old, and you still can't say no to your mother? Have you met my mother?" "Fair point. Just get here." Alessandro was not watching where he was walking. He was watching his phone, checking the time, doing mental calculations about how he could salvage this. Territory on the east side, profit sharing on the ports, the Morettis wanting 70-30 when 60-40 was the reasonable split. He could offer them exclusive shipping rights on Thursdays. That might sweeten the deal enough too. He collided with something. Someone. The impact was solid, immediate, and entirely his fault. His venti espresso, extra shot, black, no sugar because he liked his coffee the way he liked his business dealings, went airborne in what felt like slow motion. He watched it arc through the air, watched the lid pop off, watched roughly 20 ounces of dark roasted Colombian blend find a new home all over the front of a woman's white shirt. His phone clattered to the marble floor with a sound that definitely meant a cracked screen. The woman made a small shocked sound, somewhere between a gasp and a squeak, and looked down at the spreading brown stain that was covering her torso like an ink blot test. Except instead of asking what you saw, it was asking how badly you'd just ruined someone's morning. Alessandro looked at what he'd done, at the coffee dripping off her chin, at her white silk shirt that was now several shades of brown and transparent in places he absolutely should not be noticing, at her face, which was cycling through shock, horror, and the specific kind of devastation that came from knowing your day had just imploded. He said the only thing that made sense in the moment. Merda. The coffee was hot. Not scalding, thankfully. His preferred temperature was drinkable immediately, but hot enough to be deeply uncomfortable. It soaked through the silk immediately, the kind of fabric that probably had care instructions in 3 languages and cost more than it should. The stain spread like it was trying to set a record. Her white shirt turned brown, then darker brown, then see-through where the liquid pooled. She just stood there staring at it, like if she looked long enough it might magically unhappen. Like if she concentrated hard enough, time would reverse, and she'd be back to 5 seconds ago when her shirt was clean and her morning was salvageable. Alessandro recognized that look. He'd seen it in business meetings when negotiations went catastrophically wrong, when someone realized they'd made a mistake they couldn't take back, when the only option left was to figure out damage control. His phone started ringing on the floor, Rocco calling back. He ignored it. "I'm so sorry," he said, already moving, already trying to assess the damage. "Are you burned? Did it?" He reached for her arm gently, checking for injury. She blinked up at him. "I'm fine. Just... Your phone's ringing, you should..." He bent down, picked up his phone, silenced it without looking at who was calling, and shoved it in his pocket. The phone immediately started ringing again. He ignored it again. "It can wait," he said. She was still looking at her shirt with an expression that suggested she was mentally calculating exactly how badly her morning had just imploded. Which was fair, because he'd just coffee-bombed her into next week. "I have an interview," she said quietly. She checked her phone. 13 minutes. He looked at the stain, looked at his watch, looked at her face, which was trying very hard not to show how close she was to completely losing it. He made a decision. "Come with me," he said. "Now." "What?" "I'm fixing this. Come on. I don't even know." Alessandro Rossi. He grabbed her hand, started walking toward the elevator. "You're coming with me. We're fixing this." His phone rang again. He could see Rocco's name on the screen. He texted back without breaking stride. "Emergency. Start without me." The reply came back in 3 seconds. "Are you serious?" He didn't respond. Just pulled the woman whose name he didn't know into the elevator and hit the button for the penthouse floor. She was staring at him like he might be kidnapping her, which was fair given the circumstances. "I'm not kidnapping you," he said. That's exactly what a kidnapper would say. "Fair point. But I spilled coffee on you and you have an interview in 12 minutes and I'm going to fix it." "How?" The elevator doors opened into the penthouse hallway. He led her to his suite, pulled out his keycard, opened the door. "Wait here," he said, leaving her standing in the entryway of what was essentially a luxury apartment masquerading as a hotel room. He went to the closet, found the garment bag with the Ermenegildo Zegna suit he'd been planning to wear to a dinner later that week, brought it back to where she stood looking lost and coffee-stained and slightly terrified. "Put this on," he said, handing it to her. "Bathroom's there. Whatever fits. You have 10 minutes. She stared at the garment bag like it might explode. I can't. Yes, you can. Go. This is... She checked the label visible through the clear part of the bag. This is a $4,000 suit. I'm aware. I can't wear a $4,000 suit. You can and you will, because I ruined your shirt and you have an interview and this is how I'm fixing it. Now go. 9 minutes. She went. The bathroom door closed with a soft click. Alessandro stood in his penthouse suite, phone vibrating in his pocket with what was probably the 15th call from Rocco, and tried to figure out what exactly he'd just done. He'd bailed on the Moretti negotiation. 6 months of careful planning, diplomatic back-channeling, getting both families to agree to sit down together. All of it potentially torpedoed because he'd spilled coffee on a stranger and couldn't walk away. His father would have walked away, would have apologized, handed her some cash for dry cleaning, and continued to his meeting because business came first. Always. That was the rule. Alessandro had apparently decided rules were optional today. He pulled out his phone while he waited. 7 missed calls from Rocco. 12 texts, escalating from professional concern to creative Italian profanity. He called back. Rocco answered on the first ring. Where the hell are you? Emergency. What kind of emergency makes you miss the Moretti meeting? Someone better be dying. I spilled coffee on someone. Silence. The kind of silence that was louder than yelling. Then, you spilled coffee on someone. Yes. And that's the emergency. She has a job interview. He checked his watch. 8 minutes now. More silence. Alessandro could practically hear Rocco's blood pressure rising. Then, Alessandro, tell me you did not just bail on the Moretti family peace negotiation because you spilled coffee on a random woman. She's not random. You just met her. I'm aware of the timeline, Rocco. The Morettis think you're disrespecting them. I'm trying to salvage this, but they're not happy. Vinny's pacing. Carlo looks like he wants to shoot someone. This is bad. Tell them something came up. Tell them I'll reschedule. Tell them whatever you need to tell them. They might walk. You understand that? 6 months of work gone because you can't watch where you're walking. Then we'll deal with it. I'm not leaving her with a ruined shirt and no interview. Rocco was quiet for a beat. Then, she must be really pretty. Alessandro looked toward the bathroom door, thought about the way she'd looked up at him, trying not to cry, trying to hold it together even though her morning had just detonated. Thought about the line of her neck, the way her hands had trembled slightly when she'd taken the garment bag. I don't know yet. I'll let you know. You're domesticated and you don't even know her name. I'm hanging up now. Wait, what's her... Rocco was saying as Alessandro ended the call. He walked to the window, looked out at Manhattan spread below him like a game board. This was his city. His family had been here for 3 generations, building something that existed in the spaces between legal and not, legitimate and gray area. He'd inherited it all at 28, when his father had a heart attack in the middle of a business dinner. Hadn't asked for it. Hadn't wanted it particularly. But it was his, and he'd spent the last 11 years making sure it stayed that way. He'd sacrificed a lot for that responsibility. Relationships that couldn't handle what he was. Friends who'd drifted away when they understood what the family business actually meant. A wife he'd loved who died 6 years ago because cancer didn't care if you were mafia or civilian. It took who it wanted. He'd been alone since then. Intentionally. It was easier. Cleaner. No complications. And then he'd crashed into a woman in a hotel lobby, and apparently his brain had decided that all of his carefully maintained emotional distance was negotiable. The bathroom door opened. She stepped out. Alessandro turned from the window and forgot whatever thought he'd been having. She was drowning in his suit. That was the only way to describe it. The white dress shirt hung off her shoulders like she was a child playing in her father's closet. The sleeves extended well past her hands, covering her fingers completely. She'd tried to roll them up and had given up somewhere around the 7th fold. They still fell past her wrists, bunching around her forearms in a way that should have looked ridiculous. The pants had been a lost cause. She'd apparently taken one look at them, realized they were sized for someone who was 6'2" and not 5'6", and decided her own skirt was the better option. Smart call. The pants would have pooled around her ankles like she was wearing fabric puddles. The vest fit surprisingly well. She'd cinched it with what looked like her own belt, pulling it tight around her waist. It gave the whole outfit structure, made it look less like a disaster and more like an intentional choice. The suit jacket was draped over her shoulders like a cape, too big everywhere but somehow working. The charcoal gray looked good against her skin tone. The Italian cut, designed for a man's broader frame, hung off her in a way that was oddly elegant. Her hair was still perfect. She'd somehow fixed it in 8 minutes. Makeup touched up, professional, ready for an interview. The coffee stain had vanished under layers of expensive Italian wool and cotton. She looked like she was playing dress-up. She looked absolutely beautiful. "You look better in my suit than I do," he said, and meant it. She looked down at herself, at the sleeves that covered her hands, at the way the jacket threatened to slide off her shoulders with every movement. "It's way too big. It's perfect. I look ridiculous. You look powerful." He walked over, couldn't help himself, adjusted the collar of the jacket that had folded awkwardly against her neck. His fingers brushed against her skin. She smelled like his soap now, floral notes from the hotel bathroom mixing with coffee and something that was just her. "How's the interview location?" "Building next door, 10th floor. But you really don't have to. I already missed my meeting. I'm walking you. Your meeting was boring anyway." Probably. He didn't actually know. He'd missed it. But it seemed like the right thing to say. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. I was dreading it. This was better. You're better." "But it was important," she said, and there was genuine guilt in her voice, like she'd personally caused his problems instead of him causing hers, like she was somehow responsible for his choices. "You're more important." The words hung there between them, heavy with implication neither of them was ready to fully unpack yet. She stared at him. "You don't even know my name." "That's true. What is it?" Ava Marchetti, Alessandro Rossi. But you can call me Alex." She glanced down at the suit jacket, back up at him. "Thank you. For this. You really didn't have to." "Yes, I did. Come on. You have 7 minutes." They made it to the lobby with 6 minutes to spare. People stared as they walked through. She was hard to miss, drowning in a suit that probably cost more than most people's rent, walking next to a man who looked like he owned the building, which he might. Alessandro owned a lot of buildings. Outside the hotel, he walked her to the entrance of the office building next door. "Good luck," he said. She turned to face him, one hand holding the jacket closed because it was determined to slide off her shoulders. "Thank you. For everything. I'll get your suit back to you as soon as— Keep it. I can't keep a $4,000 suit. You're keeping it." He pulled a business card from his wallet, handed it to her. "Dinner tomorrow night, so I can find out how the interview went." She looked at the card. Alessandro Rossi, Rossi Enterprises, a phone number, an address in Manhattan. Is that an invitation or a command? Both. She should say no. She should absolutely say no. Strange man. Missed meeting for her. Gave her his suit. This was weird. This was all weird. She said, "Okay, 7? 7. I'll pick you up. Text me your address." She nodded. Started to walk away. Stopped. Turned back. "Why did you do all this?" "Really?" He thought about it. "Because you looked like your world was ending and I caused it. And I don't like causing problems I can't fix." "That's it?" He smiled slightly. "Ask me again at dinner." She smiled back, turned, and walked into the building wearing his suit like armor. Alessandro watched until she disappeared into the elevator. Then he pulled out his phone and called Rocco. How much damage did I do? The Morettis left. They're insulted. We'll have to reschedule, and it's going to take work to get them back to the table. Do it. You're seriously not going to tell me why you bailed? I spilled coffee on her. We've established that. What I'm asking is why that mattered enough to miss. Because she looked at me like I'd ruined her entire life and I had to fix it. Rocco was quiet. Then, you don't even know her. Not yet. Madonna, you're gone. I'm aware. Is she worth it? Alessandro thought about the way she'd looked at him when he handed her the suit, the way she'd walked out of that bathroom trying not to laugh at herself, the way she'd said, "Thank you," like she meant it. Yeah, he said. I think she is. Ava made it to the 10th floor with 4 minutes to spare. Found the Morrison and Beck reception area. Checked in with the receptionist who did a double take at her outfit but didn't comment. She sat in the waiting room trying not to think about the fact that she was wearing a stranger's suit to the most important interview of her life. Her phone buzzed. Text from Harper. How's it going? You nervous? Ava typed back. Long story. Tell you later. Harper. That's not ominous at all. The receptionist called her name. Ms. Marchetti, they're ready for you. Ava stood, adjusted the jacket that was determined to slide off her shoulders, took a breath, walked in wearing a suit that cost more than her monthly rent and belonged to a man whose last name she'd only learned 10 minutes ago. The interview was 3 senior partners, 2 men, 1 woman. They looked at her outfit. She could see them noticing. Interesting choice, one of them said. Thank you, she replied. Deadpan. It's Zegna. And then she proceeded to nail every single question they asked. Maybe it was the suit. Maybe it was the fact that she'd already had the weirdest morning of her life, so nothing else could faze her. Maybe it was because Alessandro had looked at her like she was worth missing an important meeting for, and something about that had settled into her bones. Whatever it was, she was flawless. They offered her the position before she left the room. She walked out of that building at 10:45 with a new job, a $4,000 suit, and a business card in her pocket that felt like it was burning a hole through the fabric. She called Harper immediately. I got it, she said. When Harper answered, Oh my God, I knew you would. How do you feel? Ava looked down at the suit jacket. Like I'm wearing someone else's life. What? Long story. Are you free for lunch? They met at their usual place, a deli in Midtown that had excellent sandwiches and didn't judge you for eating your feelings. Harper took one look at Ava's outfit and said, Whose suit is that? So Ava told her. The coffee, the hotel, the man who'd missed his meeting, the suit that cost more than her savings account, the business card, the dinner invitation. Harper stared at her for a full 10 seconds. Then she pulled out her phone. What are you doing? Googling him. She typed, read, scrolled, then went very still. Ava. What? She turned her phone around. Ava read the article. Alessandro Rossi, Rossi Enterprises, real estate development, construction, import-export. And underneath all the legitimate business descriptions, barely hidden, the truth. Suspected ties to organized crime. 3rd generation. Rossi family has operated in New York for over 60 years. He's mafia, Harper said. Ava set down her sandwich. Oh. Mafia, Harper repeated. You're wearing a mafia boss's suit, apparently. And you have dinner with him tomorrow. Apparently. Are you going? Ava looked at the business card she'd been carrying in her pocket like a secret. Thought about the way he'd looked at her. The way he'd dropped everything to help her. The way he'd said you're more important, like he meant it. Yeah, she said. I think I am. Harper grinned. This is either the best decision you've ever made or the worst, and I can't wait to find out which. The next evening at 6:55, Ava stood in front of her apartment building wearing a simple black dress and the suit jacket from yesterday because she'd tried it on again and couldn't bring herself to take it off. It still didn't fit. Still hung off her shoulders. Still looked ridiculous. She was keeping it. A car pulled up at exactly 7. Not the SUV she'd expected. An Aston Martin. Sleek, black, expensive in a way that didn't announce itself. Alessandro got out, walked around, opened her door. He was wearing a different suit, navy this time, no tie. He looked at her, specifically at the jacket she was wearing. You kept it. You told me to. I didn't think you actually would. It's comfortable. It's 3 sizes too big. Still comfortable. He smiled. Good. Keep it. They drove to a restaurant in Little Italy, not one of the flashy tourist places. A small family-owned spot with checkered tablecloths and the smell of garlic and tomato sauce so strong it was basically a physical presence. The owner came out the moment they walked in. Luca! È troppo tempo! They kissed cheeks. The owner looked at Ava with open curiosity. This is Ava, Alessandro said. Benvenuta, the owner said, beaming. Any friend of Luca is family here. They got a corner table. Quiet. Private. Ava looked around at the photos on the walls, the strings of lights, the obvious love that had gone into every detail. This place is beautiful, she said. Been coming here since I was 8. Best food in the city. The owner's uncle came over with wine they didn't order and bread that was still warm. For you, he said to Alessandro. For your beautiful girl. She's not... Alessandro started. Thank you. Ava cut in, smiling. After the uncle left, Alessandro said, Sorry. They're enthusiastic. It's sweet. They think I'm dying alone. Are you? I was until yesterday. The weight of that settled between them. They ordered wine. He asked if she had a preference. She chose something Spanish, a Rioja she'd had once at a wedding, and remembered being good. He looked impressed that she'd picked something specific, instead of just saying whatever, or red. The owner's uncle came by with fresh bread and olive oil that Alessandro had definitely not ordered. For you, the uncle said, setting it down with a flourish. For your beautiful girl. Mangia, mangia. She's not... Alessandro started to correct. Thank you, Ava cut in, smiling at the uncle because he looked so genuinely happy to see Alessandro with someone that correcting him felt mean. After the uncle left, Alessandro said, Sorry, they're enthusiastic. They think I need to settle down and stop working so much. Do you work too much? According to my mother, I work approximately all the time and will die alone and unloved surrounded by paperwork. That's very specific. She has opinions. Ava smiled, tore off a piece of bread. What about you? Do you think you work too much? He considered it. I think I work the amount required to do what I do, which is a lot. But I don't know how to do it differently. Have you tried? No. He said it simply, honestly. This is what I know. It's what I've always known. The food came. Homemade pasta that the owner's wife had made that afternoon. Sauce that had been simmering since morning. The kind that tasted like someone's grandmother's secret recipe because it probably was. Veal that melted. Wine that was too good for Ava to fully appreciate, but she tried. They talked through dinner. He asked about the interview. She told him about walking in wearing a suit 3 sizes too big, about the way the senior partners had looked at her, about how she'd said, "It's Xenia," completely deadpan, and then proceeded to nail every question they asked. You did that, he said. The suit just made you feel like you could. The suit definitely helped. You would have done it anyway. You prepared, you knew your stuff, you were qualified. The suit was just fabric. Very expensive fabric. Still just fabric. You're what made it work. She felt her face warm. Took a sip of wine to hide it. Your turn, she said. Tell me about your meeting. The one you missed. He leaned back, swirled his wine. It was a negotiation. Two families trying to avoid a conflict that would be bad for everyone involved. Territory disputes, profit sharing, the usual business disagreements that can escalate if you're not careful. And you missing it made them angry. The Morettis are old school. They value respect, punctuality, face-to-face commitment. Me not showing up sent a message I didn't intend to send. What message? That I didn't think they were worth my time. That I didn't take the negotiation seriously. But you do take it seriously. I did. I do. He paused. But I also couldn't leave you standing there with a ruined shirt and 13 minutes to get to an interview. So I made a choice that might cost you, a choice that already cost me. Rocco spent 3 hours this afternoon trying to convince them to reschedule. They might not. They might decide I'm not trustworthy and deal with someone else. She set down her fork. I'm sorry. If I just... don't. He said it firmly but not unkindly. You didn't do anything wrong. I crashed into you. I made a mess. I chose to fix it. Those were my choices, not yours. But if I hadn't been there, if you hadn't been there, I would have made that meeting and spent the entire time thinking about business instead of meeting you. And I'm starting to think that would have been the real mistake. The weight of that settled between them. Ava studied him across the table, the gray at his temples, the lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled more than his serious default expression would indicate. The expensive watch that was understated until you knew enough to recognize the brand. The way he'd held an umbrella over her, even though she was already soaked. The way he'd given her a $4,000 suit without blinking. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. What do you actually do? Rossi Enterprises. I saw it on your card. What is that? He was quiet for a moment, set down his glass, looked at her steadily in a way that suggested he was making some kind of decision. Import, export, construction, real estate investment, development projects. We own buildings, we ship goods, we manage contracts. All legitimate businesses, all profitable, all legal. He paused. And the not legitimate part? She asked. He looked at her. You already know. I Googled you. Harper made me. Well, she didn't make me, but she suggested it and I was curious and... She stopped, took a breath. The articles mentioned your family. Going back generations. Suspected ties to organized crime. Nothing proven but lots of speculation. What did you think when you read that? I thought about you missing your meeting to help me. About you giving me your suit. About the way you looked at me like I mattered before you knew my name. And I thought that says something about who you are, regardless of what your family business is. So you came to dinner anyway. I came to dinner anyway. Why? Because everyone has family complications. Mine just happened to be more dramatic than most people's. She paused. And because I wanted to hear your version, not the Google version. He considered her for a long moment, then nodded, like she'd passed some kind of test she hadn't known she was taking. The Mafia is a dramatic word for it, he said. But yes, that's part of what we are, what we've been for 3 generations. My grandfather came from Sicily in 1952 with nothing. Built connections, built businesses, built a life. Some of it legal, some of it less legal. My father inherited it, made it bigger, more organized, more careful. I inherited it from him. Did you want to? No. He said it simply. I was 28. I'd been planning to do something else. Maybe law school, maybe business school, something legitimate and boring and safe. Then my father had a heart attack at a business dinner and I inherited everything whether I wanted it or not. Could you have walked away? Not without consequences. Not without leaving my family unprotected. In this world, power vacuums get filled quickly and violently. If I'd walked away, someone else would have taken over. Someone who might not have protected the people my father protected, who might not have honored the agreements he made. So I stayed. Do you regret it? He thought about it. Sometimes. But regret doesn't change anything. This is my life. This is who I am. I try to do it with honor, with rules. We don't hurt innocent people. We don't deal drugs. We don't do human trafficking. Those are lines we don't cross. But you do hurt people. Sometimes. When necessary, when they break agreements or threaten people under our protection. It's not something I enjoy. It's something I accept as part of the reality I live in. She absorbed that. Thought about what it meant. About the man sitting across from her who'd given her his suit and was now telling her he sometimes hurt people when necessary. Thank you, she said finally. For what? For being honest. For not lying or trying to make it sound better than it is. You deserved honesty. So do you. Which is why I'm going to tell you that I'm not running. You should. I know. She reached across the table, put her hand over his. I'm not. They finished dinner. He paid without looking at the check. They walked out into the warm New York night. He drove her home, parked outside her building, walked her to the door like they were in some kind of old movie where people had manners. Thank you for dinner, she said. Thank you for not running when you found out what I do. Do people usually run? Most people. I'm not most people. No, he said quietly. You're really not. He stepped closer. She didn't step back. Can I see you again? He asked. You're asking? I'm asking. Yes. Tomorrow? She laughed. You don't waste time. I wasted 39 years not knowing you existed. I'm done wasting time. That's very smooth. It's very true. He kissed her then. Slow. Careful. Testing. His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. She kissed him back. Hands on his chest, feeling his heartbeat under her palms. When they broke apart, they were both breathing harder. Tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow, she agreed. He waited until she was inside, until the lights in her apartment came on, before getting back in his car and driving away. Ava leaned against her closed door and called Harper. So? Harper answered immediately. How was it? I'm in trouble. Good trouble or bad trouble. I have no idea. The next 6 weeks happened in a blur. They saw each other every day. Coffee before her work. Lunch when he could steal away from meetings. Dinner every single night. He'd show up at her office at 5:30 and just wait in the lobby until she was done because he said he didn't want to waste time on transportation when they could be together. Rocco met her in week 2, looked her up and down, pulled Alessandro aside. She knows what you are? Rocco asked. She knows. And she's still here? Apparently. Rocco looked at her again, shrugged. She's either crazy or perfect for you. Could be both. Probably is both. Week 3, she met his mother. Sunday dinner. The invitation had come through Alessandro on Tuesday. My mother wants to meet you, he'd said, like he was announcing a natural disaster. That's good, right? He'd looked at her with an expression somewhere between amusement and concern. You've never met an Italian mother before, have you? I've met mothers. Not like Maria Rossi. Sunday arrived. They drove to Brooklyn, to a house that had been in the family for 40 years. Large, well-maintained, the kind of place that held decades of memories in every room. Alessandro parked, looked at her. Last chance to run. I'm not running. You will after you meet my cousins. How many cousins? Conservatively, 15. Liberally, I lost count. The door opened before they reached it. Maria Rossi stood there, barely 5 feet tall, silver hair pulled back, wearing an apron that said, World's Best Nonna, even though she wasn't technically a grandmother yet, and looked at Ava for exactly 3 seconds before pulling her into a hug that might have cracked ribs. Finally, Maria said into Ava's shoulder. Finally, he brings home a girl. Ma, Alessandro said from behind them, sounding long-suffering. 39 years I wait, Maria continued, not releasing Ava. 39 years. I thought maybe he's a monk. Maybe he's married to his work. Maybe I die before I see grandchildren. You're not dying, Ma. I could die. Any moment. Heart attack. Stroke. Tripping over nothing. And then what? No grandchildren. Just regret. She released Ava finally, held her at arm's length, studied her face like she was reading something written there. You're too skinny, Maria announced. But we fixed that. Come. Everyone's here. Everyone was accurate. The house was packed with Rossi family members. Aunts and uncles and cousins and people Ava couldn't immediately identify, but who all seemed to know exactly who she was. Alessandro's girl, they whispered. First one in years. First one since Angela. Angela was his wife. A cousin named Teresa explained later. She died 6 years ago. Cancer. He hasn't brought anyone home since. Inside, the noise was overwhelming. 3 conversations happening in Italian. 4 happening in English. 2 happening in some mixture of both. Children running. Someone arguing about soccer. Someone else arguing about the proper way to make gravy, which Ava learned was what they called tomato sauce. And if you called it sauce instead of gravy, you were basically announcing you weren't really Italian. Alessandro kept his hand on her lower back, guiding her through the chaos, introducing her to people whose names she forgot immediately, because there were too many, and they all looked vaguely related. This is Aunt Francesca. She'll ask about your family and your job and whether you want children. Just answer honestly. She respects honesty. This is Uncle Tony. He'll try to give you money. Don't take it. He gets offended if you do. This is my cousin Marco. He'll flirt with you. I'll hit him if he does. Marco, who was maybe 25 and had apparently missed the memo about appropriate boundaries, took one look at Ava and said, Alessandro, if you mess this up, I'm asking her out myself. Alessandro hit him. Not hard. Just a brotherly punch to the shoulder that made Marco laugh and back off. They sat down to dinner at a table that had been extended with 2 additional leaves and still barely fit everyone. Ava ended up between Alessandro and an aunt named Rosa, who immediately started asking questions. So you're a lawyer? Paralegal? Junior associate now? Smart girl? Good. Alessandro needs someone smart. His last girlfriend. Rosa made a gesture that clearly meant not smart. Beautiful, yes. Smart, no. Ma's aunt, Alessandro said to Ava, doesn't believe in subtlety. I believe in truth, Rosa corrected. Your father, God rest his soul, he would like this girl. She has sense in her eyes. The food came out in waves. Antipasto, pasta, meatballs the size of baseballs, sausage, braciole, vegetables that had been cooked in so much garlic they were basically Italian at this point regardless of origin. Bread, more wine, more wine. You eat, Maria commanded from the head of the table. You're too skinny. Men don't like skinny. They like something to hold on to. Ma, Alessandro said. What? I speak truth. Your father, God rest his soul, he liked that I had curves. You were too skinny when you were born, like a little bird. I had to fatten you up. I was a normal-sized baby. You were tiny, like you might blow away. The cousins started telling stories. Apparently, Alessandro had been a serious child who'd tried to organize the other kids into structured games with rules and penalties for violations. He made us sign contracts, one cousin said, laughing. Actual contracts. For hide and seek. With terms and conditions. I wanted to make sure everyone understood the rules, Alessandro said. You were 8. Rules are important at any age. Another cousin, this one named Gianna, said, Remember when you cried at Toy Story 3? That movie was emotional. You sobbed, Gianna said. Like full-on sobbing. We had to leave the theater. It was a touching conclusion to a beloved trilogy, Alessandro said with dignity. You were 33 years old, another cousin added. A grown man, crying at a Pixar movie. Ava laughed so hard she choked on her wine. Alessandro patted her back, looking resigned. They're never letting that go, he said. Never, the cousins confirmed in unison. After dinner, Ava helped Maria with dishes, because that's what you did at Sunday dinner even if you were a guest. Maybe especially if you were a guest. Maria washed, Ava dried, and the older woman studied her with sharp eyes that missed nothing. You know what he is, Maria said. Not a question. I know. And you're not afraid. Should I be? Maria was quiet for a moment, hands still in the soapy water. Then, my husband, God rest his soul, he was the same. Good man, complicated work, but good man. She paused. Alessandro, he's like his father. He tries to do right, tries to protect people. But the work, it's dangerous sometimes. I know, and you stay anyway. I stay anyway. Maria looked at her for a long moment, then smiled. Good. You're good for him. He smiles now. Before you, no smiling. Just work and more work, and that serious face like he's carrying the world. Now he smiles. That's good. They finished the dishes, went back to the living room where Alessandro was being interrogated by 3 aunts about his intentions. You bring her to Sunday dinner? That means something, Aunt Francesca was saying. It means I wanted her to meet the family. It means you're serious. You don't bring girls to Sunday dinner unless you're serious. He's serious, Aunt Rosa confirmed. Look at his face. That's his serious face. This is just my face. You're keeping her, Maria announced, coming into the room. I approve. She's good, smart, not afraid of washing dishes. You marry this one. Ma, we've been dating 3 weeks. So, your father proposed after 2 weeks. We were married 42 years before God took him. Times were different then. Love is love. You know it when you see it. She pointed at Alessandro. You see it. I see you seeing it. Don't be stupid. Later, driving back to Manhattan, Alessandro said, I'm sorry about them. Don't be. They're wonderful. They're intense. They love you. They're trying to marry me off. Are they wrong? He glanced at her. About you being serious. He was quiet for a moment. Then, no. They're not wrong. Week 4. They had dinner with his people. Business dinner at a private room in a restaurant Alessandro owned, which Ava had learned was how a lot of his business dinners worked. Neutral territory that wasn't actually neutral because he owned it. She'd been nervous about this one. Meeting his mother was one thing. Meeting the people he worked with, the ones who knew exactly what the family business entailed, was different. What do I wear? She'd asked that morning. What you'd wear to any business dinner. Your business or normal business? He'd smiled. There's a difference? She'd settled on a navy dress. Professional, elegant, the kind of thing that said I belong here without trying too hard. She wore the suit jacket over it. His jacket, the original one. She'd taken to wearing it constantly, like armor. When they arrived at the restaurant, there were already 8 men in the private room, all of them in expensive suits, all of them turning to look when Alessandro walked in with her. The conversation stopped. Alessandro's hand settled on her lower back, reassuring. Gentlemen, he said. This is Ava Marchetti. Ava, this is the team. He introduced them one by one. Rocco she'd already met. The others were new. Vincent, who ran construction. Carlo, who handled shipping. 3 others whose names and territories she tried to commit to memory. 2 more who were muscle, there to watch and listen more than participate. They all shook her hand. All assessed her with varying degrees of curiosity and suspicion. They sat. Alessandro at the head of the table, her next to him. Wine appeared without being ordered. Appetizers followed. "So," Vincent said after a few minutes of careful small talk, "you're a lawyer, paralegal, junior associate now. What kind of law?" "Corporate. Contracts mostly. Mergers and acquisitions, partnership agreements, that kind of thing." "Boring stuff," Carlo said. "Very boring," Ava agreed. "Lots of paperwork, lots of clauses, very little excitement. You like it?" "I love it, actually. There's something satisfying about getting language exactly right, about making sure everyone understands exactly what they're agreeing to. No surprises later." She saw Vincent and Rocco exchange a glance. Alessandro's hand found hers under the table, squeezed once. "Surprises are bad for business," Vincent said slowly. "They really are," Ava agreed. The food came. She ate and listened more than she talked. The conversation shifted to business, territory, profit margins, a shipping contract that was being renegotiated, a construction project that was behind schedule. They didn't hide what they were discussing, didn't talk in code or euphemisms. They talked openly, like she was already trusted, and she understood that this was a test. They were seeing if she'd flinch, if she'd judge, if she'd run. She didn't do any of those things. She just ate her dinner and listened, and occasionally asked questions that showed she was paying attention but not pressing for information she shouldn't have. When Carlo mentioned a contract dispute, she said, "Have you considered arbitration? It's faster than court and more private." When Vincent talked about a partnership that was souring, she said, "Get it in writing. Document everything. If it goes bad, you want a paper trail. Practical advice, lawyer advice." They listened. After dinner, while they were waiting for coffee, Vincent looked at Alessandro. "She's not scared," he observed. "No," Alessandro agreed. "She should be." He said it not unkindly, just factually. "She's not most people," Alessandro said. Vincent looked at Ava, studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Welcome to the family." Later, in the car driving home, Alessandro said, "You were perfect. I was terrified. You didn't show it. Years of practice. I spent 3 years as a paralegal being terrified of senior partners. Your people are scary, but at least they're honest about it." He laughed. "Fair point." "Do they approve?" "I think so. Vincent doesn't say welcome to the family unless he means it. And that matters? Their approval?" He pulled up to a red light, looked at her. "Yeah. It matters. Not because I need permission, but because they're family. In the traditional sense, and in the chosen sense. If they didn't approve, they'd make their concerns known." Loudly. "And if I hadn't passed their test? Then we would have had a problem. But you did, so we don't." "What if I hadn't?" He reached over, took her hand. "Then I would have chosen you anyway. But I'm glad I don't have to." The light turned green. They drove through Manhattan, through streets that felt familiar now, even though she'd only been navigating them with him for a month, back to his penthouse, which was starting to feel less like his and more like theirs. Inside, he poured them wine. They sat on the couch, her feet in his lap, his hand absently rubbing her ankle. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For handling tonight the way you did. For not being scared. For being exactly who you are, even in a room full of people who could be terrifying if they wanted to be. They were testing me. They were. And you passed. With, I might add, Carlo asking afterward if you'd be willing to look at a contract he's working on. So, congratulations. You've been recruited." She laughed. "I'm not sure my firm would approve of me doing side work for the mob." "Probably not. But the offer stands if you ever want to switch careers. I'll keep that in mind." They sat in comfortable silence. The city glittered outside the windows. Somewhere below, millions of people were living their normal lives, going to normal jobs, dating normal people, having normal problems. Ava wouldn't trade this for any of that. Week 5, her ex-boyfriend showed up at her apartment. Owen Martinez, corporate lawyer. They'd dated for 8 months 2 years ago before she'd caught him with a paralegal from his firm. He'd spent 6 months trying to get her back before finally giving up. Apparently he'd heard about the promotion. Apparently he wanted to congratulate her. Ava stood in her doorway and said, "Thank you. Good night." "Can we talk?" Owen asked. "We just did." "Ava, come on." "Owen, we broke up 2 years ago. You cheated. We're done." "That was a mistake. It was a choice. Multiple times." "I miss you. I don't miss you." She tried to close the door. He blocked it with his foot. "Just give me 10 minutes. She was reaching for her phone to call Harper when Alessandro appeared in the hallway behind Owen. Just got out of the elevator. Saw Ava's expression. Saw Owen's foot in the door. "Problem?" Alessandro asked quietly. Owen turned. Saw Alessandro. Saw the suit, the watch, the expression that was very calm and very dangerous. "No problem," Owen said quickly. "Just leaving." "Good idea." Owen looked at Ava. "This isn't over." "Yeah," Alessandro said. "It is." Owen left. Alessandro walked to where Ava stood in her doorway. "You okay?" "I am now." "Who was that?" "Ex-boyfriend. Doesn't understand the ex part." Alessandro's expression went very still. "He comes back, you tell me. I can handle him. I know you can. Tell me anyway." She looked at him. Saw something in his face that wasn't quite anger, but was in that neighborhood. "Okay." He kissed her forehead. "Good." Owen didn't come back. But his life suddenly got very complicated. Parking tickets that he didn't remember getting. Background check issues at his building. A complaint at his firm about unprofessional conduct that required investigation. Nothing illegal. Nothing traceable. Just everything becoming inconvenient all at once. Ava heard about it from Harper, who'd heard about it from someone at Owen's firm. "Apparently everything in his life is going wrong," Harper said. Ava thought about Alessandro's expression when Owen had said this isn't over. Thought about the way he'd said tell me anyway. "Karma," Ava said. Week 6, she saw something she wasn't supposed to see. She was at Alessandro's place. Penthouse in Manhattan. Ridiculous view. More space than one person needed. He'd stepped out to take a call. She was making coffee in his kitchen. 2 men came in through the front door. One of them was bleeding from his face. The other was supporting him. They saw her. Froze. She froze. Alessandro came back. Saw them. Saw her. Said something sharp in Italian. The men left through a different door. Alessandro walked over to where she stood holding a coffee mug she didn't remember picking up. "I can explain," he said. She looked at him. At the door where the men had gone, at the small drops of blood on the marble floor. "Your business," she said. "Yes." The not legitimate part. "Yes." She set down the mug. "I need to think." "Okay. I'm going home." "Okay." She left. She spent the next 3 days thinking, really thinking, about what she'd seen, about what it meant, about who Alessandro was versus who she wanted him to be. Harper came over on day 2 with Thai food and moral support. "So you saw something," Harper said. "I saw something." "Something bad?" "Something that reminded me that what he does isn't just theoretical. It's real. And sometimes people get hurt. Are you going to leave him?" Ava thought about it, about the way he looked at her, about Sunday dinner with his family, about the way he'd given her his suit without hesitation, about the way he'd said you're more important like he meant it. "No," she said. "I don't think I am." "Because you love him." "Yeah, I really do. Even with the mafia stuff. Especially with the mafia stuff, because he's never lied about it. He told me what he was and let me choose. And you're choosing him. I'm choosing him. Harper hugged her. You're either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Day 4, Ava showed up at Alessandro's place unannounced. He opened the door looking like he hadn't slept. Saw her standing there. Didn't say anything. I'm not running, she said. You should. I know. I'm not. Ava. I saw what I saw. I thought about it. I'm not running. She stepped closer. I'm staying, if you'll have me. He pulled her inside, kissed her like she was oxygen, and he'd been drowning. I love you, he said against her mouth. Since probably the coffee? Maybe before. I don't know. I just know I do. I love you too, she said. Even knowing what I do, because I know what you do. You don't lie to me. You don't hide it. You let me choose. And you're choosing this. I'm choosing you. They stood there in his entryway, holding each other, and Ava thought, this is what home feels like. Week 8, she moved in. Her lease was ending anyway. He'd asked. She'd said yes. It was that simple. Harper helped her pack, looked around the penthouse when they arrived with boxes, said, well, you've come a long way from coffee-stained shirts, haven't I? You happy? Ava looked at Alessandro across the room, unpacking her books onto his shelves like they'd always belonged there. Yeah, she said. I really am. 3 months in, they fell into a rhythm that felt like it had existed forever. Morning coffee together. Him leaving for meetings in suits that cost more than most people's cars. Her going to Morrison and Beck, where she was thriving as junior associate. Coming home to each other. Sunday dinners at Maria's, where she'd been fully adopted into the family. Rocco came by one evening while they were making dinner. You've domesticated him, Rocco said to Ava. It's disturbing. Is it though? Ava asked. He smiles now. All the time. It's unsettling. I think it's nice. You would. Alessandro threw a dish towel at him. Don't you have somewhere else to be? No. I'm staying for dinner. I want to see more of this disturbing domestic situation. They ate pasta that Alessandro made from scratch because apparently he could cook and had been hiding this skill for reasons Ava didn't understand. Rocco told embarrassing stories about Alessandro's teenage years. Alessandro threatened to fire him at least 6 times. Ava laughed until her sides hurt. Later, after Rocco left, Alessandro pulled her close on the couch. Happy? He asked. Very. Good. She was wearing his suit jacket again. The original one. She wore it constantly now, around the apartment, to Sunday dinners, sometimes to work under her own blazer. You're never giving that back, he said. Never. Good. It looks better on you anyway. 4 months in, they were grocery shopping, which was such a normal thing to do that Ava sometimes forgot that Alessandro ran a mafia organization and wasn't just a regular guy who argued with her about whether they needed the expensive olive oil. They do taste different, he said. Olive oil is olive oil. You take that back. Make me. He kissed her in the middle of the grocery store, right there in the olive oil aisle. And Ava thought, yes, this, exactly this. They checked out, loaded the car, drove home listening to music that Alessandro pretended not to like but knew all the words to. In the elevator up to the penthouse, he said, I want you to know something. Okay. I've never been this happy. In my entire life, not once. Me neither. Good. The elevator doors opened. They walked into their home, put away groceries, made dinner together, sat on the couch with wine, and watched a movie that neither of them paid attention to. Ava was wearing his suit jacket over her pajamas. Alessandro was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, which meant he was off duty, which meant it was just them. I'm glad you spilled coffee on me, Ava said. Best mistake I ever made. Not a mistake. Fate. You believe in fate? I believe that the universe knew what it was doing when it made you too distracted to watch where you were walking. He laughed. So, my inability to multitask is fate? Absolutely. I'll take it. They sat there in comfortable silence, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her, and Ava thought about that morning 4 months ago. The coffee, the panic, the white shirt ruined beyond repair, the man who'd stopped everything to help her, the suit that had changed her life. Best coffee I ever spilled, Alessandro said quietly. Best suit I ever borrowed. You're still not giving it back. Never. Good. Sometimes disasters are just beginnings in disguise. Sometimes a ruined shirt and a missed meeting are exactly what you need. Sometimes the best things in life start with mistakes made by distracted men who can't watch where they're walking. Sometimes 15 minutes in someone else's suit is all it takes to find home.